Hey everybody, so my name's Sam Michlap, and it's a fantastic CTN already. It's bigger than last year. Everybody having a good time? Woo! All right. So I'm going to go through a couple of images real quick, just so those of you who aren't familiar with me can see a little bit of what I do, and then I'll sketch around a little bit, and we'll see what we get. I have no idea. So I'm on a panel tonight at 6:45, and the topic is a really cool topic. It's about being an artist first. I've been a production designer at DreamWorks Animation for 15 years. I helped set up the studio. I was within the first handful of people, and I've been really fortunate there. I started my career in '92 on Lion King as a layout artist, and then did Hunchback, and then DreamWorks called me when they formed up, and was there for on and off about 18 years. Now, currently, I'm a concept designer out in the world, and I'm working with Marvel on Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So that should be a real fun one when it finally comes out. The artwork that I'll just take you through real quick, some of the stuff that they'll probably be showing later tonight. This is Prince of Egypt. These are independent animated features. That was Monsters vs. Aliens. The thing that I teach at Art Center, I teach online at LA Figurative, and the thing that I'm always talking to students, and even with what I do with my own work when I bring it into the studios, is it's all about storytelling. We're all designing films. Hopefully, we're designing films. And if not, then it's books, and it's other, other publications or other avenues, which is awesome. But for me, it's been films primarily most of my career. And it's always been about how to tell the clearest possible story. And that, my roots, I was asked earlier by somebody when I was doing a little book signing earlier, how they would get into this kind of thing, looking at the book that just came out and the stuff that I'm doing. And I said, it's an interesting question, because she said, she goes to school for animation, or she goes to school for film, actually. She wants to apply film to what she does as an artist on paper. And I said, that's a great question. It's what I teach, and it's very pertinent to my education at Disney. I was trained in film, believe it or not, because my mentor happened to be a filmmaker. So I wasn't just taught how to do pretty charcoal renderings and classic Disney-looking layouts, but he put me through seminars on cinematography and camera lenses and staging characters and lighting them on sets. And we did a lot of that while I was on Lion King. And so it set up a 25-year career thus far that everything I production design, everything that I contribute as a designer is always from the standpoint of what is the lens doing and how is it communicating a story. And it has to start with film. If you want to design for film, you have to start with film. You should draw from film. One of my fun assignments I give people are to draw 1,000 Sharpie drawings, 2 minutes each, from film. Take Citizen Kane or something and do that to warm up for composition. And composition is really the main thing that I think sums a lot of people up, is composition for story, composition of how you block characters and how you light a scene. It can be elusive, and I don't take it for granted that mine was learned the long way, frame by frame, studying film. So that's good. So let's doodle something in front of you guys. I have no idea what it will be, but let's just play. A little different setup, so forgive if it's not as quick as I probably want it to be, but I'll get there. So, a lot of what I do tends to nowadays be done as quickly as possible with a tool that allows you to go as quick as possible. And the good old days, it was markers. I grew up in the industry using markers and charcoal and pencil. I left pencil when I left DreamWorks, or when I left Disney to go to DreamWorks. I left layout and became a concept designer or a viz dev artist on Prince of Egypt. And what that really meant was you're kind of free to visualize however you want as long as you get the job done. When it was on a traditional movie like Lion King, it was always about changes, art direction. And it's still about changing in art directing. I mean, even on Guardians, I'm being asked to alter and adjust things. So you have to work in a way that allows changes. Pen doesn't allow for changes on paper. Charcoal doesn't allow for changes on paper very easily. And I got really tired of pencil because it was slow. It smudged on my hands, and it was just slow. That's the best way I could put it. And I have no patience. I get bored with my own stuff as quickly as I'm putting it down. And so I found a tool called the freeform pen tool. And I had used the pen tool a little bit for vector graphics, for logo graphics, which is the other pen tool, which has all the tangent curves to it and all the control points. You're seeing me put them down. But this one squiggles, and it's astonishing how fast you get results. And the thing that I'm after most today are, like I said, what I teach online is, can you block something out within 5 minutes? Is it good enough to show a director your thought of intent for what needs to happen? And then after that, after the initial kind of breakdown is done of what you are thinking you want this scene to be about, then it's just rendering. And rendering is, like it has always been for me, not fun. I'm okay at it. I don't love it because you have to work really hard, and I don't like working really hard like that. I don't like turning form, and I don't, I just don't. Let's be honest about it. So I found these tools in this program, which make it a lot easier than traditional painting to find solutions, and a lot of people do this. And I have all my fancy little tools and all my little things like everybody else does, but the only thing that I'm trying to bring to the game for myself is the clarity of thought of what do I want to say and how do I want to say it and how best can I put that down. Is there a method to creating images quickly that have some conviction and aren't fussed over? And that's really, look at all these fun brushes. I only loaded a few, but better people than me were already on the stage, so they dropped all these wonderful things down. And that's really, anything that I do tries to be, I guess at least with the mindset that we want to be emotional. I'm not drawing for whatever reason. I may have picked a, hold on, let me go back to this. Duh, the layers underneath. It's such not my setup. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Don't listen to me. Go back to your own stuff. Right, so if I look at that already, that's already a composition that I can do something with, and you saw what it was. It's I don't know. Okay, we could dissect this for 5 hours like I do on my online class, and I can tell you why I think it's working and what could be, where we're going to go now, and where we're going to go is just refining the original statement of intent, which are these large shapes, telling some sort of story for these guys. I'm already bored of it. I really could care less almost at this point, because to tell you the truth, it kind of has an energy that's interesting. We can run textures through it and we can paint more with it, or I can switch back into the tool that I've been painting with a little bit, and we can subdivide the shape a little bit more and see what we get and see if anything worthy kind of comes out of it. But what is it even of? I don't know. It's two guys talking around some crazy structure that has a lot of kinetic energy. Did I know that when I started? No, but I've drawn hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of frames that now my kind of working process is to just go with something and see where it leads me. I used to be much more concerned about preliminary drawings and perspective and grids. Not that I'm not, but it's more about, for me, trying lots of solutions to just see what comes out as far as composition goes. Seeing if any of those have any kind of validity to go forward in my own mind of is, is the emotion working? If we back up and we talk about that for 1 second, one of the things to kind of note is, like on the film I'm working on, we absolutely have script pages, and they give them to us all the time, and down to lines or intent that has to be hit. Because unlike animation, where I come from, this one, live action is certainly about reality being built on a set, on a stage. Animation is all on paper, which I love for different reasons. But this one's fun because it's about having to be mindful of something being built. Now, things can be extended with CG, but if you're working on marks that people have to hit on a stage and designing it that way, then more than times than not, you kind of have to be mindful of what the script is saying, what the emotion is saying, what kind of lenses you might be asked to use, or the kind of ways that they want to block a shot to tell a certain story with some actors. Those would be called keyframes. What I'm doing could be considered, I suppose, a keyframe. At the very least, it's certainly a moment of some sort of story going on. Why? Because I've placed two characters doing something framed by an object. It instantly looks like it wants to be something. I have no idea what it is, though. It's really irrelevant in the beginning for me to be too, like I said, too tight about that kind of stuff. So what I'll probably do today is just a couple of different ways of working. One being, just simple tricks like this, which are very graphic and very simple to understand as far as what it is we're saying and how we want to say it. And then I'll do another demo after this where it's a painted demo. It's, with squishy brushes and all that stuff, which is a lot of fun as well. Right, so within seconds, we can get comps going that have, like I said, some emotion and some sort of intent without being fussed over. It feels like I'm cheating most of the time because coming from traditional painting, this doesn't happen as quickly with traditional mediums. It can with large brushes, but all the tools and the lasso tool and all that fun stuff that we get to use in this great program today really, make it a lot of fun, right? So, right, instantly the piece went from like, okay, whatever, I guess it's kind of there, I don't know what he's talking about, to it has a little bit of drama now, right? And we can remove any of these, or we can put masks on any of these things, and we can start playing, and start seeing what might come out of it. I tend to do a lot of my painting nowadays without the use of lots of brushes. For the very simple nature that Photoshop, at least for me, is and it's just personal, but it's kind of, it's best if I'm understanding these tools for what I think they're meant to do. That's a long-winded way of saying I don't find the experience of painting in Photoshop with a textured brush, as amazing as they are, as rewarding as an oil painting brush, because I'm just old enough, I suppose, that it's something I really enjoy doing as a tactile experience. So what does that mean? It means that I tend to go after lasso tools and after channel painting and after things that don't require a lot of squishy brushes to get marks that I know I could do with a marker itself on a piece of paper. And that's the only reason for it. You can do amazing things with Photoshop with just simple brushes once you know how to paint. But really, most of the time, the stuff that I tend to do nowadays is very driven by this kind of idea. So, it's like I said, it's about, can you look at a frame quickly? Can you sum up divisions of space quickly. I'll put a layer on top of it real quick if we go into super like hardcore teaching mode just for a moment, which I love to do. I mean, I love teaching and I love talking about this stuff, right? If that's the center, pretty much, the thirds, the poor man's version of trying to come up with something that could feel like it's asymmetrically balanced, well, that's the reason for that, obviously. Then there's other things that come into play and what I'm trying to do. My way of working is I always consider this rectangle first, right? I look at that, and then I ask myself division questions, like can I divide this space in such a way where one half is 90% and the other could be 10? And then subdividing 10, could I take 10 and break that up into something that could be even, maybe there's 5 and 5%, and then, or 5 and let's say a little change left over, and can we take these guys and make them the remainder? So the entire intent of the entire composition was about blocking you down to something that big to watch a piece of dialogue happen. All the pieces that I was skimming through when I first opened my portfolio are doing nothing more than that. They're just taking frames and manipulating them to make you feel certain things based on what we know psychology will bring. I love squares. I didn't plan on that, but let's do a square composition. Same thing. So if it's going to be a brush instead of the pen tool, let's just take a squishy brush. Okay. First thing I always do if I'm starting up a color comp is I will find a color that I know I can build color on top of. Color is a layered process. In traditional paint, it's a layered process. If you want something red to pop, you can't put red on top of white paper and expect red to pop. You have to put red next to something that will excite it. You could put green underneath it because that's a pretty simple conceit. Or you can go to a split complementary off of the color you're dealing with and go look at the color wheel. But in all forms and fashions, and this took me some time because in school we would always do portrait demos or we would do still lives, and my first question that the instructor never answered was, what color should I start with? What color should, everybody's like, yeah, what color do you start? Why do you start with green? I'm like, I don't know, because I wanted to start with green. It's really that simple. It's not rocket science. I'm pretty thick-headed. I couldn't even remember one of my students' names over here. Or Jackie. There she is. Right? I'm really thick. And I deduced after all these years, why would you start with green or blue or red? Because I just wanted to. And then I go and see what that does. Does it do anything? If it sucks, well, then don't do that again. And change it. But let's say there's something interesting that could come off of a color combination that you record. Thank God I haven't lost memory for all the ways that I've recorded color and what they do with each other. But and the other thing too is I really can't stand this sampling ring. Everybody sees me demo, they know that. It's like, I can't stand it. I don't want to be reminded what I'm picking. I just want to see it, and part of what I try to do is literally like I'm standing right here in front of you doing this. I'm not hiding things that I'll do that make it more complicated than it really is. Maybe all I can say is, like anybody, like all of you, is we have to work really hard at what we do. And I've just worked really hard trying to understand a little bit of what my voice wants to say and how it wants to say it. And past that, it really doesn't mean much. The other thing that I do a lot of in the world is, Photoshop, I should say, is when possible, and when I'm trying to be tasked to push myself to play with color harmonies and rhythms of color, color chains, how color moves from one object to the next object, and what that means, is I paint like I do on paper. I paint with one layer. And that becomes nerve-wracking because the more you get into your painting and the more it starts working, and then like this, a tree is in the way, and you have to start painting that green around the tree. Well, you have to do that with gouache, unless you, of course, put your green down first. And if you don't, well, then it was meant to be an opportunity to start playing with color harmonies, right? And color harmonies of beautiful color working to the next color are really all I'm ever after with most of the pieces. And how can we play with color in a way that creates some interest, so it's not just dead. Dead color arrives from the fact that you're picking color here, through here, here, and in here. Most of the color that has to be found is here. That comes from an old painting lesson that I was given in school, which is don't ever lose the identity of any color. You should always be able to identify every color. And I teach at Art Center, and it's funny because everybody wants to gray their color down. They all want to be game designers or they want to be live action concept designers. And the first thing they do is they kill all their color because they think it's dramatic and interesting and real, right? If we go really gray with our stuff. And it's absolutely not what I'm doing on Guardians, I can tell you that right now. And he hired me because of my color sense. So that should give you hope that don't gray your color. You can always gray it later. Again, I'm old-fashioned, old-schooled, where it's if you want to create beautiful color, go for it, put really strong color notes next to another color note. And in oils, it's easy to gray a color. It's almost impossible to freshen up and make a beautiful color out of something dead. So in Photoshop, I do the same thing. I go for it, because we can take this and we can desaturate it, we can kill it, we can make it tonal. That doesn't matter. But can you say something to yourself that might be interesting with color? So it's really a nothing. It's there's nothing there. I don't know what else we'll do. We'll just keep talking, and I'll do something for you eventually that's worthy. So the fun thing about brushes is it gets this beautiful intermixing of color happening. The thing I hate about brushes in Photoshop is they're slow. I mean, I can think faster than this with oil brushes because paint is loaded on a brush and you put it down and it's immediate. This is not quite the same. So the journey that I try to take when I'm painting is more about what could color be doing and work it up that way after I see simple shapes come together. So I don't know. We'll just stay with this one a little longer. And we'll see if it gets us anywhere. And then sometimes, I mean, you know, lots of people like working with the lasso tool and they paint within the lasso tool. And I guess that's fun. We could do that, right? It brings a nice, strong, graphic, crisp shape into it, and that's always useful. Some of my techniques are heavily influenced by using lasso tools. Painting through a shape, right? We can put a shape in the foreground. You could never paint the shape nearly as quickly. You put a shape down. You want to reflect some blue light into it. You reflect blue. You go back in here with some of this brown and hide that. And instantly you have a couple of shapes you can start playing with. And so that's another kind of technique that I'm always employing just to get through kind of the drudgery of having to build a painting up, honestly. I mean, for me, it's still not fun in some ways to build something up. I like when you get enough paint on a canvas and you're actually going to a place that could be exciting. For me, every painting I do, even to this day, I'm kind of like, oh, I really got to do another painting now. The other one was so good, I finally figured it out and it's done. And then you're like, what am I going to do now? It's going to suck. And I swear I'm terrible. That's what I do. I still do. I'm doing it on Guardians right now. I'm like, oh, they just approved my last one. Do I have to do any more? Can I just end there? Can I just be done? Maybe go out on a high note. No, but then you got to push fate. You have to see what else you can do and see if you can mess up another one. No, I'm pretty hopeful that given enough time, I can do something. You know what? Let's. Anyway, I don't know. It sounds like a terrible sentiment. But I'm just being honest. Let's just come up on stage and blurt it out to everybody. It's like, really, starting images is still something that's kind of daunting at times. Right? And instantly, if you throw a couple of squishies in there that look like people, now the scene has something and it looks like a person. And then you're like, oh, now I can do something with it. My technical term, squishies, smudgies, a skosh more. Pretty classic for me to, I'd tell you that to my designers, I'm just give me a little squish more over there. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And they get to know me long enough and they're like, ah, I know what he's talking about. He just wants a little thing over there. Not too much squishing. Oh, I'll show you something else after. That might be fun. I'll show you the first way that I learned how to paint in Photoshop, actually. It wasn't with a brush, because the brush is back in 1994, 1995, maybe. Weren't nearly what they are today. They weren't bad. It's just I couldn't control them. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So the only way I could learn how to paint was using a shape tool. Funny enough that I would find that shape tool after all these years again, which is the freeform pen tool. But back in those days, it was the line tool. And I used to create full images using just the line tool and nothing more. And people look at them and they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, yeah, but I came from the world of markers. So as soon as I understood how to make a mark with markers, well, it was easy. They just had to find the tool that did the job. And I don't say it lightly, because I've had students that could paint beautifully, kind of new to Photoshop, frustrated by Photoshop because they didn't understand the interface, or they didn't understand where their tool was. And that's the best way I could put it. Then they find their tool, and they're unstoppable. And I have to say, for me, that freeform pen tool was kind of the tool, and the shape tool was the tool that really allowed me to move into the speed at which I used to paint on paper. And so that was kind of fun. So maybe if you're with Photoshop today and you're struggling with it a little bit, maybe that's some advice, is keep searching for different ways of saying what you want to say with that tool, and chances are there is a tool for you there. May not be the ones that I use, but that doesn't matter. 5 minutes? That doesn't matter too much. So let's do real quick one last one with the line tool, which is always fun. Make it pixels, because pixels are immediate as far as seeing like a paintbrush would be put down. If you go into the shape tools, it goes right into the vector tools, and that's kind of a different thing. But if we put, let me see. It's still not quite, but it's all right. I love what this tool can do. Okay, so then let's go to, I just want to block in a couple of things real quick. Oh. Just to see, again, a division of space. And I love this tool for the simplicity. And to me, it's kind of like a game. It's, can I subdivide a larger statement and keep some balance and keep some focus with your eye? And that's kind of the big thing that I'm always after. If we lock those shapes, let's say, and let's just paint into those shapes real quick with another squishy brush. And we'll keep it kind of, let's put it on multiply just real quick. right? Paint through the ants. And then reverse the selection. I reversed the selection, put a new layer on it, and again, in the spirit of staying simple with things, right? So it doesn't matter. People talk about style a lot, they talk about graphics a lot. I employ a lot of graphic design in my pieces, or sensibilities graphic design that you would see in magazine layout. I'm always constantly aware of those kind of things. I've created stamp brushes specifically for it, right? And this is just another example. It's all the same principles. Good old-fashioned design and balance and harmony, rhythm, and then what do you do with those things? So you've seen like 3 different techniques today. If we took this one to a place where we, like, I guess, further rendered its lighting and its edges, then you'd get to something that starts feeling like it's actually built, you know, with lighting involved. And the last thing, you know, that is a complete terrible cheat to do, I hate cheats like this, right, is we cover the whole thing and we spotlight it. What a cheat. What a cheater. And the fun thing I say about this stuff is when I first started out in Photoshop, I would do those transitions by hand with a round, straight brush. And when I was art directing on Shark Tale years ago, I would ask my artists to do the same thing. I'd be like, you know what, let's paint it the real old-fashioned way, guys. Let's not use these blends. And they all hated my guts so much, because it's so not easy to do, but it's really fun to do, and it's really I think a good exercise to play with. Let's put that in a group real quick, and then we'll look at them real quick, right? So if we took that and I pasted it up, and then I go into the channels of curves, then we can start sculpting in seconds. All of that beautiful lighting you were supposed to paint the old-fashioned way, but didn't, right? And you can get all these amazing results quickly between where it was and where it could go. So I don't know if we're out of time, but if there's no pressing thoughts, I think that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you very much for hanging around the stage. Appreciate it.